This is the briefing for Tuesday, October 3rd. Pretty interesting day in the stock indices today. We had a pretty good down day, which was supported by the internals for sure. This is the spiders on a daily basis. Now, this is S&P breadth. That we did have a little bit of a divergence here in S&P breadth, as you can see, going back to the 26th. So a little bit of strengthening coming into the spiders, at least at this point in time. But look at what happened with 52-week highs minus 52-week lows. I mean, there was some real damage done in today's trading, even though it may not be reflected in some of the indices. Now, the NASDAQ certainly holding up a little bit better as it did yesterday than the other indices, and the Russell is certainly showing more weakness. Now, if you remember, we were looking at three different types of price patterns and strategies that could be developing in the indices, and one was this is a general rotational period where we have a move up, a move down, a move up, and a move down, and then potential for another move higher. The second was that this is a three-step counter trend rotation where there could be equality that would where there's equality between legs 1 and 3 that came in right around the 427 area, which has been broken. We've broken through the 430 area, which was the lower extreme of this area of rotation. So the rotational pattern appears to be minimal. The length of the equality strategy, where there's equality between legs 1 and 3, seems to be minimal. And the final one, which was the price pattern I've been talking about for some time, that this whole thing from this high down to here appears to be a very bearish type of price pattern. That appears now to be becoming the greater possibility. Now, it's important to remember that if that is the case, that markets run and pause in all degrees of time. So we can't expect to see just a huge move without any pause. Based on that, I have to assume that while there's a potential, because the internals were so weak today, for a gap down tomorrow morning, I'm going to be very cautious to be watching what happens with the internals to see if there's any type of divergence that would then suggest a pause, because we are at a point of being extremely oversold, and you can see that here. This is the NYSE, and this is the NASDAQ. NASDAQ is just really extremely oversold. And going back to the NASDAQ and the Qs, you can see that NASDAQ breadth was negative 2,378 shares. That's a pretty big extreme. You can even look back here, and going back to this is back to March of this year. We were just slightly more than that negative. So we really have not seen the weakness that we've seen in today's trading in the NASDAQ. But some of the NASDAQ higher weighted stocks are holding up, and they're holding the index up because it is just right at its lower extreme from this area of rotation. So it's going to be interesting to see if it can break through. Equality between 1 and 3 in the Qs comes in right around 347. Interestingly enough, also in the spiders, that we came down and we tested this 418 area, which is the next level of support. And if that is broken, then we're looking at trading down to the next level. Support comes in at the 403, 404 area before we see any type of support coming into there. Once again, the Russell, it is showing much more weakness. Equality between 1 and 3 came in right at the 175 area. That was traded through pretty significantly yesterday and followed through today. Interestingly enough, that support came in at 170, and that's exactly where it came to. And then we got a little bit of a rotation back up. You can see volume in the Russell and the IWM increasing nicely, breadth just falling off pretty dramatically. So basically, strategically for tomorrow, and this is the way I'm approaching it, is that there's a chance that we could see a gap down in the morning, and that we could see potential for some type of internal divergences, which would then suggest a possible rotation back up to work off the oversold condition. On the other hand, we could see a gap and go, and that will determine what happens in terms of the internals. If the internals are continuing to weaken and are weaker than today, then we could see this market begin to run to the downside. Alternatively, we could see a pause tomorrow also. So what happens tomorrow is going to be very important. If there is a pause, if there's any type of rotation back to the upside, how that develops is going to be very important to analyze. If we do see a move to the downside, analyzing the internals and seeing if there's any strength coming into the market based on the fact that we're at an extreme oversold condition would then suggest the possibility of some type of rotation back to the upside. So if we do open lower tomorrow, watch the internals. If they are as weak or weaker than today, we're going to see this market continue to move lower. If there's internal divergences, especially with breadth, that will suggest then that we're going to see some type of rotation back up. If we start the day with a rotational pattern, then it's going to be important to remember that 430 is upside resistance in the spiders. Upside resistance in the Qs is going to come in at about 360, 350, the high from the previous 2 days of trading. And then, of course, in the Russell, upside resistance is going to come in at 180. That would be the initial resistance there. Now, once again, I did identify this as a head and shoulders top. We did break the neckline at 180, and that projected the potential to trade down to 165. The equality between 1 and 3 came in at 175, and that's been exceeded. I'm going to eliminate that trend line because I don't think it's relevant anymore. The next level, of course, at 170 is an important support level for the Russell. The next level of support would be where the distance from the head to the neckline is equal to the break of the neckline, and that would be at the 165 level. So going to be a very important day tomorrow, I can assure you. If we do get a pause, how that develops is going to be very, very important. Have a great night.